just before I get into the main story points of what's happened in this episode, I did find Zora's quest to be recognised as a human, to be recognised as a sentient being, and her statement that it feels marvellous to be seen, and the idea of visibility, representation, so forth. We sort of went through this with Data in The Measure of a Man, and they are very Starfleet, Star Trek issues, and it was good to see those. And also the other issue of philosophy and morality, the idea that Book felt we didn't have the luxury of philosophy and having morals and saying this is who we are, this is what we stand for. He feels like we just have to do this, we have to attack this enemy, we have to take them out to save ourselves, and that preservation is the most important thing. Those are interesting Starfleet issues. It was good to see them, Star Trek issues, it was good to see them debated and that in the episode. But some of the other issues didn't work for me, but I'll get to that because I forgot to mention that in the rest of the video. Got a bit distracted, I just wanted to throw them in at the start. Hello, Steve Arts 89. Well, I watched Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 7, But to Connect. It was interesting. I had some issues with Starfleet and the politics, but the episode itself was fine. There was two or three main stories. The main issue was... I don't know what the main issue was. I guess the main issue was the debate in Starfleet, whether or not how to proceed with the DMA. The scientists, Taka, basically interrupted. They were proposing to basically approach like first contact like with any other species, and not to assume that the incidents with the DMA have actually been attacks, but maybe something else, and to actually approach with standard sort of first contact measures and see if they can negotiate and work out what's happening rather than just trying to attack, which some people, of course, were proposing. And Taka, is it Taka? Yeah, Taka. He shows up with basically a bomb and says, Discovery can drive in, drop this, be out in 5 seconds, it'll basically destroy the DMA and just leave the power source, which then of course he wants to use to exploit for his own agenda, which is to return to or go to an alternate dimension which he's discovered where it's perfect and peaceful. Because as he says in the episode, there's countless parallel universes with different quantum signatures, and he found one with no war, burn, or Emerald Chain or any of that stuff. So he wants to go there. So he's got an agenda. He's doing this not for the good of the Federation, for the good of the universe, although that's probably in there somewhere. Book, of course, is with him because I don't know why. Does Book want revenge? Is he just afraid of this happening to someone else and he just has this compelling need to stop it? I don't really understand his motivations. They all seem really unintellectual, very illogical, very irrational, and I would think most people, let alone 31st century people, would be more evolved than this. And that's the main issue I have with this episode. We have these sort of issues now in this century, but by the 22nd, 23rd, 24th centuries, they had gotten past this. Starfleet was established. They had rules and regulations, things you could and could not do. You couldn't just blow up an enemy species or a species you perceive to be a threat without any declaration of war or proof. That you can't just do that. But they're just voting on it. Like, okay, who says first contact? Who says blow them up? And they literally, the people who were for first contact put their hands up, and there were a few more of them than there were the votes to blow them up, basically. And of course, Michael surprisingly was on the other side. In the past, we would have assumed she would have just beamed in there and blown everyone up because that's the way she rolled in the first and second season, I guess. But she's actually on the other side, spouting Starfleet ideals to everyone else like they've never heard them before. Now, fair enough, the Federation has been sort of in flux for the last 120 years because of the burn, but you would think it's like they're starting all over again. It's like watching Enterprise when they're first putting together the Federation. So that was difficult to watch. I'm like, how are these people so unevolved and irrational that they're just going to act on emotion? They need to be told, don't act on emotion. Don't, lash out in fear, and so forth. So that was a bit of an issue. Now, the other issue, which is more interesting, I think, well, that was annoying. This is more interesting, was that Zora has reached sentience, and she had the coordinates for the species, and I didn't write down the name of the species. That was good. I wrote down unknown species, and then didn't actually write the code. It's like 10C or something. She has the coordinates, but she doesn't want to give it to the crew because she believes they're going to go and get themselves in danger, and she doesn't want them to get hurt, so she's protecting them by not giving them the information. Stamets is having a hissy, which I totally understand, because basically the computer for the ship has basically developed sentience and is making decisions on behalf of everyone. It has complete control of the ship, so if they decide, just like he said, to throw someone out an airlock because they're in a bad mood, they can do it. You can't have basically someone or one crew member or the ship have this sort of level of control. So he wants her removed or something done. She proposes like a kill switch, basically, where they can turn her off if they believe she's a threat that she created independent of her. But of course, that's not exactly moral and so forth, so they go backwards and forwards. And David Cronenberg's there, and he's debating whether or not she's actually a sentient being, if she is the AI, integrated AI issues and laws and all that regarding to ships and Starfleet doesn't apply to her. And in the end, they conclude that she is a species, her own life form, and that she can, basically they're asking, do you want to join Starfleet and be a member of the crew? That way you're part of the chain and you don't have control. Although she still has control over the ship, so how they're going to negate that still I don't understand. If she can separate herself from some of the main functions and allow them to be manned by the crew and not be in her control, that would be some way to do it, but they didn't talk about anything like that. They talked about trust and feelings and do you want to be one of us, do you not? It was all very touchy-feely, not very logical, not very talking about regulations and talking about what we should or shouldn't do. It was very, very irrational and emotional, and that was my problem with the way they were looking at it. Was this is not about feelings, this is about practical, this you can't have that much control in one person or being's hands. Forgive the noise in the background, my housemate is drunk and in the hall making noise because that's what he does. So the other part of the story, and Gray and that were involved in this because they've transitioned on some levels, and they were arguing for her that she basically has rights and shouldn't be shut down or removed. She didn't want to be removed because she feels the ship is her body and the crew is her family. And I'm like, you really should remove yourself and function with the crew, with the ship, but not actually be part of it, so you can be separated so you're not as much of a threat. That would be one way. She didn't want to do that. They were arguing that she shouldn't have to, blah, blah, blah. But after all that, they also decided that they wanted to go back to Trill. So we're getting rid of another crew member. Apparently Gray's going back to Trill to basically learn how to be a Trill and get back to being a normal Trill again after all this. And they're going to try a long-term, long-distance relationship because she sees the ship as a home and the ship as a family. I see that as the end of their relationship, frankly. But that's what they're going to do. So now the other issue, of course, is Book and Burnham. Book and Burnham, the complete opposite sides of the argument. And he was the one who spoke out on behalf of it because of his connection with what's happened from the DMA and being a victim of it. And she was basically arguing the other side because no one else wanted to stand up and do it. She won, and he said there are consequences. He was basically letting her know, we're done if you don't side with me. She sided the way she did. He left, and he literally left her grudge, left her his queen, took the device, and basically hooked up with Taka, and they're going off to destroy the DMA on their own because he's not part of Starfleet. He can do whatever he wants. So they appear to have broken up, and now she's going to have to go chase him. And they showed a preview at the end. They're chasing him through all these different non-Starfleet areas, and that's what the rest of the season is going to be, them chasing him for the bomb. So basically we've got another villain with a bomb, but now it's one of our own, basically. So it's a little bit more complicated, but not really. But then we still don't know who the villain on the other side is. They probably won't be a villain. There'll probably be some sort of species that didn't mean to do it that needs to be saved. So, but who knows? We've got to wait till February 10 before we see anything else. But I'd like to talk a little bit more, but my neighbour's being so loud. He's probably going to start swearing. I don't want that in the audio, so I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and Happy New Year, everyone. I'll be back next week to talk about Starfleet, Star Trek Prodigy, but we won't be talking about Discovery until February 10. So, thanks. Bye.